My name is Jane, and I'm here with Dr. Luquette, who is a chiropractor in Nacogdoches, and he's going to go over today with us the bones of the spine and different types of spinal problems that people have. So, Dr. Luquette.
All right, well, thank you for having me out here. This is a really exciting subject for me as a chiropractor. What we try to do is align the spine so you can feel mighty fine. So what we want to do is, how do we go about doing that? First, you need to understand the anatomy of the spine so that you can begin to appreciate it as well. So the cervical vertebrae are going to be considered the neck, and all vertebrates have around 7 vertebrae in the neck. And so you can look at a giraffe, you see a big long neck. Well, yes, that has 7 vertebrae in the neck as well. And the neat thing about the 7 vertebrae that are in the neck is they all have a little segment where an artery can go through from the heart, so it's called a vertebral artery. And so as far as the rest of the spine, we have a thoracic spine, and there's 12 vertebrae in the thoracic spine. Well, what's really interesting and unique about the thoracic spine is they have on the transverse process right here a little bitty joint function here, and then they have one on the vertebral body. And we'll go over that in just a minute, but it creates a rib connection, and where they actually have 2 joints. And so the ribs connect to the thoracic spine to kind of protect the vital organs. That's really unique and interesting for the thoracic spine. Now the lumbar spine has typically 5 vertebrae, and occasionally you get a real tall person and you'll have 6 vertebrae in the lumbar spine. And one time I had a short person that actually had a 6th vertebrae. So that was kind of interesting. But we call those anomalies. Normal abnormalities, something that you're born with. When you have some additional parts of your spine, then you can look for other abnormalities in the spine, in the body, when you see stuff like that in the spine. But what's unique about the lumbar spine is it's designed for stability instead of mobility. Now the cervical spine is designed for mobility instead of stability, so that you can turn your head and do what you need to do. But the lumbar spine is very unique, that it gives you a lot of power, because there's a lot of muscles that attach to the pelvis and the spine so that you can lift your legs and climb and do the things that humans do. Now one thing that's really, really interesting is the human pelvis is the most unique pelvis on the planet. Okay, let me say that again. The human pelvis is the most unique pelvis on the planet because it has an anterior iliac spine. And what that means is if you're standing erect, there's going to be pressure on that bone because that muscle attaches to it. And there is no other vertebrate or animal out there that has that. And so the link between chimpanzees and humans is not there, because they've been able to find Ardipithecus rhamidus, which was 4 million years old, which had an anterior iliac spine. And so the pelvis is very unique in regards to the all the animal species. So also right here is the symphysis pubis, and the symphysis pubis is real important because you can see how the shape is here. And this, does that kind of look like an oval shape to you?
Yeah.
Okay, so the oval shape is going to be a little bit different in a female than the round shape in the male. Excuse me. The round shape is going to be more of the female, and the oval shape is going to be of the male. So this looks like a male pelvis. And so a lot of people say, my hip hurts, and they point back here. This is not actually your hip. What this is a ilium, and so they call this the iliac, the SI joint, which is the sacrum and the ilium. And so the ilium has a very nice little fat pad here and a fat pad underneath here, and it's almost like its own little disc system. And so the pelvis is really unique in regards to the leverage on walking, but also when it comes to the hip, this is called the acetabular, and this is the femur head, and there's a nutrient artery that goes inside the femur head. Now, a lot of times when they do surgery on the hip, they'll have to replace this hip ball and then put an acetabular piece here, and so they'll just take this and put a rod in and replace that whole thing, and so that's called a hip replacement. But as far as the sacrum, there's the sacrum when you're born. All of these little small pieces are cartilage, And so eventually they fuse, and the sacrum fuse into a real nice tailbone that has many different segments, and then all of those nerves that come out of this develop into what we call the sciatic nerve. Now if you raise your hand and raise your finger like this, then your sciatic nerve, after dissecting 37 cadavers, we've measured every single finger on every cadaver, and you can measure the sciatic nerve that comes out of here by the way of your index finger, which is an interesting characteristic.
So, isn't it true that the sciatic nerve is the largest nerve of your body?
Yes, and it does carry a lot of the power so that you can ambulate or become mobile. And so what is interesting is the coccyx, sometimes when you fall on your tailbone, it will slightly irritate or break or disarticulate, and it kind of goes forward, but that presents a problem during some pregnancies for the female. Now that's some of the structure of the spine. Let's get into some of the other parts of the structure of the spine, which is going to be your disc. These discs are little shock absorbers in between each one of the vertebral bodies. And so to understand it better, we have here a good, we would call this is a nucleus pulposus, and around it is an annular fibers. And those annular fibers, when you're dissected, you can break your blades trying to cut it because they're very, very tough. And then the nucleus pulposus carries the soft jelly part. But once this has been injured, it looks like this. And once it starts to herniate, it looks more like this. And you can see where the disc bulges out like a jelly donut, but very, very tough. And so whenever, excuse me, I don't know if you can see this or not, but the nerves come through a hole here called the neuroforamina. And the nerve hole is neuroforamina. And the spinal cord goes through the spine, and then it has the nerve root come out through the neuroforamina. What's really interesting, if you think about it, here's where the brain is. Whenever there's conception, the first thing that starts to happen is a cluster of grapes. And those cluster of grapes create a peanut. And then the peanut creates a small tail. And that small tail becomes the spinal cord itself. And then that tail starts to root out. And as it roots out, it goes to all the different organs. And if you can see this here, you can see how those roots go into all the different characteristics of the human body so that your body can live. And so it's interesting that we are developed from the top side down and the inside out. So that's an interesting part of the nervous system as it comes out and creates this nerve root. Now if I may, there are several different components of the nervous system itself. And so as we said here, these are the nerve roots, and they go to the extremities and the muscles and so forth. But we have the central nervous system, and then the spinal cord itself, and then we have the autonomic nervous system, and it's an automatic system. So basically, you don't think about your heart moving or your stomach or your colon and your kidneys and bladder. It works automatically. Okay, and so the autonomic nervous system goes into several different parts, mainly two parts, where you have the fight or flight mechanism, which is sympathetic, and then you have the parasympathetic. And the parasympathetic is the slow down. So if you have an alligator or comes in front of you, or you're reading a book and you get kind of excited, your fight or flight mechanism, you either fight or flight. And then if you eat a steak, all of the blood work will go to the gut, and then you get really tired. And so that can work on digesting the food. So we're running short on time, but I just wanted to let you know that when you have spinal misalignments in any one of these segments, it can affect not only the organs, but also the muscles that it attaches to. And remember, chiropractic is the key to be able to unlock this nerve pressure so that you can align the spine and feel mighty fine. So,
real quick before we go,
yes,
can you tell us a little bit more about the curvature of the spine and how it's supposed to naturally look, and versus people who have lordosis, for example, or scoliosis.
Yes, okay, this is very good. Well, when I was going through school, we didn't have a clear delineation of what the curve should be inside of the cervical spine. And now we know it should be about a 14-degree curve. And when it's straightened out, that means there's going to be some kind of ligamentous laxity or some kind of ligamentous laxity or injury or something that's occurred to this really mobile neck. But there are degenerative changes that can come to the neck as well. And then in the thoracic spine, we see mostly in female for some reason, we don't really know exactly, and there's 7 categories of scoliosis, but briefly touching over scoliosis is basically having a curvature in the spine. And so most of the time we see things here at the base where there's a compression fracture at lumbar vertebrae or vertebral body L5, and it starts to lean. But a lot of times they're born where there wasn't much room, and when they come out, as they grow, as the twig grows, so grows the spine, so to speak. And so there are some really interesting conditions that happens in the thoracic spine as well as the neck. We call it DISH. It's called diffuse idiopathic sclerosing hypertrophy. And what that means is the ligaments start to fuse, and you have to differentiate that from what we call bamboo spine and Mary Strumpel's disease, and it's called ankylosing spondylitis. And so the ankylosing spondylitis will not actually fuse heavily at first, but the dish will stay the same, and then you'll see a change in the ankylosing spondylitis to where it starts to fuse heavily. And there is a differential blood that you can do, blood work that you do, and it's called an HLA-B27, and that tells you if it's ankylosing spondylitis or not. And so DISH and ankylosing spondylitis is something that chiropractic deals with on a regular basis, and it's kind of exciting. And the other thing is that we see the most is a degenerative change in the lumbar spine and the lumbar and thoracic junction, or right around the physics of 5 and 6 is where most of the injuries occur and disc problems occur in the cervical spine. And so as far as some of the other diseases, you can have arthritis start on one side or another, and what that usually means is trauma, or you can have arthritis that's starting to be all the way through the body, and that is the only one that I would look at towards a family history.
Okay.
Well, how was that?
That was great. Thank you so much for speaking with me today, Dr. Lequette.
Well, it's an honor. Thank you very much, and live well and prosper. Thank you.